Good evening. We find ourselves roughly where we left off last time. Congratulations, Jigstraw, on being first tonight. We got some presents. It's a yellow box of some description. Hammer resistant, just like I always wanted. Curtains that are somehow concurrently sturdy yet fragile. Ant and Wolf leaving construction. Some maniac tore down half the mall yesterday. They're shutting down for renovation and cancelled my contract for the parking garage. It's been a terrible year all along. I decided to leave construction and open a pawn shop instead. That's actually why I'm contacting you. They have this massive closing down sale at the mall today, and every soul in the locale is there. I was thinking you could pay Frustrum a visit to help me stock up the pawn shop. Happily. I got a bunch of money. I should consider spending it on something. The thing is, I kind of have... I can't think of anything that I want that I don't have. Oh well, this is fine. Let's see. Fire alarm, wide alarm boxes. Pretty standard stuff. More energy drinks, that is an option. Alright, let's start by laying eyes on everything. To the extent of our ability. I'm going through these hotel rooms, and I'm reminded of a thing that a friend of mine did once. Where he went to a hotel, and... because, like, he travels for his work. He went to a hotel, and they were, like, overcharging just to use the fridge. Like imagine staying at a hotel, and then, like, if you open the fridge, they just add $50 to the price tag of, like, your stay, no matter what you actually did with it. And he quite reasonably thought that that was unreasonable. But what he did notice was that in the room there was a trash can, and in the hallway there was an ice machine for drinks. So he just took his trash can out into the hallway, held it under the ice machine until it was full, and then just, like, put all of his stuff in that. It's like, honestly, fair. Clever. Do that. Alright, so we've got a thing there. Looking at the overall thing, we're kind of spread all over the place. I would say imagine, like... imagine just coming home one day and, like, one of your things is missing, and then you find out that it's, like, in a pawn shop. But then I was like, wait, I have actually experienced this. It's not fun having your stuff stolen, not at all. Restroom Town Council, Community Award, Fresh Restroom Gas Attendant, you keep the town rolling. And a tribal mask. I wonder how reasonable it would be to, like, construct a bridge between these two buildings so that I didn't have to, like, go down between them and then climb back up. Thoughts to ruminate on? There's also something in here. The door's a bit more locked, but this one isn't. Okay, they appear to be different buildings entirely. I bet I can climb this thing. There we go. I could just use, like, the plank or whatever. But I'm kind of in saving the tool usage mode. Even though I don't really need to be. Okay, I bet I could do this. Yes, I could. So I can just grab that through the wall. Surgical precision with the shotgun to blast a hole around the painting and leave the painting itself completely unharmed. Can you make a suspension bridge of planks connected by cables? I presume that's possible. But it would probably take more planks and cables than I can carry. Or at the very least, more cables. I got quite a lot of planks. I like how all the computers in this office are not wired up to alarm boxes, but the fax machine of all things is. It's like, I can't get mad at them or anything, because, like, they have, in fact, correctly identified what the thieves would want. But it's like, why? You were thinking rudimentary, just cable plank cable? Oh, I think I get where you're coming from. Maybe I could do that. Alright, so there's a thing up there. As far as I can tell, both ends are about as far away from the escape vehicle. So I'm not yet seeing a clear, obvious, like... I'm not seeing one that is, like, obviously the one that I should start at. We'll see. Yeah, I can potentially do, like, a suspension bridge type thing. I like the implication that they keep fishing this rock out of the river and I just keep putting it back in the river. These look fun. I wonder if there's anything in here. Looking like a no. That's fine. Oh, also, the other day, last week when I was playing this, I realized that you can do photo mode. I just kind of like no-clip around. And there are actually some secrets that are like fairly well hidden, and with this you can just like find them really easily. So like that's an option. Technically, with that in mind, I don't even have to go in on foot. Even Stereocaster. But I like going in on foot. Gives me a better idea of like what going forward's actually going to be like. This feels like I could dangle it outside. With not too much difficulty. Or at the very least make it grabbable from the outside. Which would mean that I wouldn't have to come in here. So yeah, I can literally just grab that. And there's a thing over here. Thunderman Boombox. Given Stereocaster, that's a guitar nerd joke. It sounds like you're a guitar nerd. Would you care to explain? I am interested in learning. Okay, so if I grab that and I can somehow get like that, I can go around like that. As opposed to like going like that, which feels longer. Alternately, I could do something like this, but that doesn't feel optimal. If I can get across the river quickly, that'd be nice. And I've got an idea. So I'll take this truck. Stratocaster is Fender's most iconic / popular design. Gibson and Fender are historically rival companies. I presume they make guitars. Yeah, I felt like I'd heard those names before, but I'm not into like instruments or anything like that. Okay, so my idea is basically, what if I just like did this, and now it's a bridge. We'll wait for the bones to warm back up, and not quite. That is very much a jump that I could make. I don't think I'm gonna need that car for anything else. So if we do a plank like this, perhaps not quite like that. Thruster, that is an option. Or I could just get a bit more wind up. Oh, there we go. The town should thank me. I'm not a demolition company, I'm a construction company. I gave them a nice new bridge. It's even wheelchair accessible if you're okay with the person in the wheelchair drowning. Okay, so we grab this. Hypothetically, maybe I should have like driven it in like that, but whatever. This thing here, I don't think I'm able to move it, so like I grab that, jump across there. It's not a perfectly smooth line, but it's something. I'm going to want to get up to the 3rd floor as quickly as possible. Typically, when going for something like that, I look for something like this. So let's see if I can get this excavator, I think it's called, around to there. Without destroying it. Which might be an ordeal, because I don't think it fits through that tunnel. Wasn't there like another thing with an arm over here? This thing, yeah. I just think that this fundamentally will not get through here. You know, it occurs to me that, like, in various depictions of slot machines that I've seen, they usually have, like, the word bar as not, like, the best thing that you can hit, but, like, a pretty good thing that you can hit. I wonder why that is. Like, normally the best thing is, like, you know, the number 7. That's the sort of question where, if I were not, like, in the middle of something, I would stop what I was doing and go look it up. Okay, so I'm gonna get up here. And I'm specifically coming from that angle, so actually I want to try and line it up nicely with that in mind. So if I can get up on top of this, like with the plank. Excellent. Then, if at all possible, I want to get from this building to that building without actually going downwards. I can run around the outside like this. This is another place where it'd be nice to have another bit of construction equipment. Maybe I could build something with these. I'm not being very talkative, but that's just because I'm thinking. Like, what's the best way to approach this? I'm kind of tempted to try your suspension bridge idea. I don't know how feasible that is, but... if I could, like... have something to kind of, like, be halfway between them. Can I just make, like, a really long plank? Is that attached to the ground? Yes, it is. So we do a tiny little bit of detaching. And now we've got a plank. And the plank is Eve hiding with the snow. Oh, just directly attach planks to the bucket, you mean? I guess that's an option. I kinda wanna do the suspension bridge one, though. That sounds like more fun now. Definitely gonna have to smooth that out. I like how clean that is, though. So the idea is basically take a cable from here, right here. Alright, alright. Now I want to get up here. That's where the thing that I want is... okay, that's where the roof is, so... the alarm box being there is slightly annoying. But overall, if I do this... whoops. I was like, how'd I end up down here? I guess a chunk of, like, brick must have fallen through and put a hole in the ground. This has gotta be doable. Not like that. It's so close to fitting as well. There we go. Let's see if we can actually use this. Okay, that does work. Awesome. It's a little bit sideways, but that's okay. So I grab that, jump over that, climb up that, grab that, get this. Even grab that from up here without having to get inside. Then I just turn left and drop down. I didn't actually, what's the word? I didn't actually case this one. Whoopsie. So I'm up here. I want to jump like this. I'll have a hole in the roof right about here. Run in, grab this. I can run out, grab that one through the wall. I can probably grab that one through the wall as well. And then just zip back around to the escape vehicle. Fear not, I've face-tanked enough explosions that I've built up a resistance to them. As you can see, I've already shaken that one off completely. So come around here. Climb up on these boxes. Up here, grab this. Just put this plank here to make it a little bit more of a stable foot platform thing. Grab that. Then I turn and I go this way. Get that out of the way. Stick my snoot in here to see if there's anything that I might want to yoink. Whenever I see bars on windows, I'm reminded of the elementary school that I went to, where they had bars on the windows. It was not a very pleasant school to attend, so I assumed that they were just like trying to prevent children from escaping. Yeah, I can take this and move that over here probably to get up there quickly. Something that I've definitely noticed is that a lot of the objectives in the second half of the game have been substantially easier to actually, like, route out and pull off than the ones from the first half of the game. And I'm not sure if that's just because they got, like, better at making them, or if it's like they decided to cut players a break after the first half was a little bit too brutal. I can only presume. Alright, let's put a hole in the wall behind that fax machine. The tools definitely help, but I also just mean, like, in terms of, like, routing the whole thing out. Like, maybe it's just more familiarity with the actual game, but, like, I definitely feel like I've been having a much easier time as time went on. Exactly, that's what I'm saying. It's like, it amuses me that we're stealing the fax machine, but, like, not the computers. Alright, so if I'm zipping, I'm coming in from here. Run up like this. Run up like this. Run up like this, grab this. And there should be a little zippy car right here to get me back to my other zippy car. My favorite thing about CRT monitors is a thing that is perhaps not very many people's favorite thing about CRT monitors, but it's how much static would build up on the screen. Like, if a CRT was in use for a while, there'd be, like, an aura over the screen that you could, like, feel if you got close to it. And then if you, like, touched it, you would actually, like, you know, absorb all of that static. And then the first time you, like, grounded yourself, it'd zap you. Or, like, if you had, like, a piece of paper, you could, like, stick it to the screen. This would, like, static cling. It's fine, we're just making the car lightweight. This is fine. Right, the whole thing seems fairly straightforward. Now we find out if I'm even in the ballpark of getting this thing done in time. It'd be really funny if I was, like, nowhere close to getting it done in a minute after saying, like, oh, yeah, this is so much easier now. But here we are. Okay, so I start out by grabbing this. Okay, that could have been cleaner. Okay, so the run like that is a bit slow. Not sure if I can make it faster. Not a very long cable. Can't really take the thing with me. I could use Blue Tide. Okay, I'm gonna have to go through this with some yellow paint, I think. Grab that. Go like this. Some of these I'm just being a little bit silly. I could maybe put like a plank there. Oh yeah, like split screen gaming, the things that people would do to like stop people from like screen peeking. I remember those days. Okay, run in, grab this. If I smash this, does it make it more grabbable? I think it does. So I jump, I'm going like this. So I go like this, grab this. Then I go this way. If I go like that, I can jump down the roof. So plank like that. Like that. Head out of the way, grab this, go this way. Mouse wallet, we take those. Run this way. Grab that, go this way. Equality. I'm gonna get in here and I go. Alright. Let's see if the gamer paint and a little bit of like route optimization helps. That one bit where like I pop out of the hotel and I like run around onto the bridge. That feels like the touchiest bit. We'll see if I can do that. Whilst in a hurry. if needed. That's 2 things. 3rd thing. On the way. Okay, okay. This is fine. There we go. I think they got me. Ah. That was probably like a 1/10 of a second, if... We'll take a little bit of a tighter line here. Yeah. Words are difficult. Yeah, either more optimal blue tide usage or just, like, better movement in general. I can also just put, like, a rocket thruster on the escape vehicle. Not like the escape vehicle, but the vehicle preceding the escape vehicle. Just a teensy little bit of extra speed and doing things exactly the same way I did the first time. And I'd be alright. Okay, I actually don't want that messing with my jumping. So I actually want it to wear off before I get here. Then I'll probably use the other one once I get out of the once I get out of the building that had the guitar in it. I could also totally make that dismount... Or that... Is dismount the word to use there? I'm not actually sure. I could totally make that a bit cleaner. I could also maybe, like, put down a plank so I could, like, take this at a shallower angle. Right, now I don't have to run around like that. Run up here like this, grab this, come around here. Get this door out of my way. Nice solid plank. I could probably anchor the bridge, but I kind of like having it just be a little bit noodly. Planks truly are the most powerful tool in this game. And actually, you know what? I think I will put some vehicle thrusters on the little vehicle. Actually, I should probably test that first before I actually commit to it, because it might make the handling worse. Like, imagine if I just, like, enter the vehicle and I go into the river because I can't control it. That'd be a bit silly. A reasonable bit of extra acceleration. I think one of them I put sideways. 10 out of 10, no notes. Right, let's do like... Let's do them like that. Just gotta hop all the way back to the starting point. I would say bunny hop, but I'm a fox. So it's more like fox jumping. The kind where you come down directly on top of a prey animal. Alright, and... make it nice and easy for myself. I like how a lot of the changes that I'm making, if this was like the Stanley Parable or whatever, I could see like the narrator adding them and would feel incredibly patronizing. But for me, it's just like, yeah, I'm making it easier for myself. Oh, overshot. Pretty promising though, I think. That was pretty slow. I could probably destroy that counter, but whatever. Oh right, this is where I wanted to use the other one. Yeah, this is fine. Mistakes were made. I probably should have tested that configuration of thrusters before I tried to use it. Oh well. I kind of put the construction equipment in my way. A little bit. A tiny little bit. I'll just... there. This is fine. And... yeah, what I'll probably end up doing is, like, getting back home and spending some money on more Blue Tide. This little speed burst when just running is actually really, really, really good. I resolved to spend money in response to needs, and I have now identified one. Right, that wasn't correct. Oh well, it's fine. Never mind, it's not. This game really does make me feel like this is probably what speedrunning is like. I keep saying I want to try speedrunning. Maybe that'll be the next thing that I do, is like... I'd like speedrun a game. got so much extra time. I just need that car to not spin out. Presumably in a no major glitches category? Not sure. Like, the game that I've wanted to speedrun for, like, the longest time is, like, Spyro. So, like, maybe I'll look at, like, what the categories for that one is. I harbor no delusions about, like, being a contender or anything. I just want to see, like, what seems like the most fun. Like a world record contender. I don't think I grabbed that thing. It's kind of funny too, because I've technically speedrun some games before, but like, only in the sense of like, oh, I'm on like New Game Plus, like, 15 or whatever, and I'm just trying to like, get the reward for completing a loop as fast as possible. More so than like, I am actually speedrunning with a route in mind. The game that I'm mostly thinking of on that one is, is the first Dragon's Dogma. Where if you beat the main boss of the base game, Grigori, it Dragon Forges all the equipment that you have that you were wearing. And Dragon Forging is essentially the same thing as putting it at like upgrade level 4 out of a possible 3. But like, the cool thing about it is that it jumps it straight to Dragon Forged from wherever it was. So if you want to like Dragon Forge a bunch of equipment, or like if you want to just like upgrade a bunch of equipment in general, especially depending on the equipment, because some of them have like really esoteric requirements, it can legitimately be faster to just equip it and loot the entire game and beat the final boss than to actually like farm the materials and upgrade it. I think I failed to grab the thing again. I'm choking. Like, the route is the route is the fine. I've got this. It's just the execution that I have to not mess up. Alright, we're doing really good so far. This is where I'm seeing a lot of hiccups. I might put some planks there if I don't do it here. And I messed the grab again. Okay, I'm gonna go smooth that over a little bit, make the hole a bit wider. Sometimes you just keep going until it works, and other times you're just like, what if I tweaked my approach? This feels like one of those latter times. Off like this. What are the odds that I can bomb this wall and not knock the not destroy the alarm box? Probably 0. Yeah, that's what I thought. We'll just do a little bit more surgical shotgun. Not like that. Ah, new boss. Welcome. Yes, this is my first playthrough. I'm currently attempting to make this thing easier to grab from the outside. And I As long as I don't mess up with the car at the end, I should be able to do this. 10 out of 10 game? No, like, I agree. This game's been super fun. There was a bit of friction at first while I was, like, learning how it worked. But overall, I've been having a really great time. Definitely wishing that I bought a few more cans of this towel right about now. Let's give this a go. I don't like how I have to slow down there. That might just be, like, skill issue. Did not want to land in there. Not the best way I could have come down from there, but at least I grabbed the thing this time. Versus. I probably didn't need to put that many thrusters on it. But at this point, I'm committed. That was just really sloppy. Twitch is gonna run an ad on my stream in like 2 minutes, and I'm really hoping that I can get this done before that happens. Yep, the break is there for you to do with as you please. Okay, this feels good. This feels good enough. Awesome. I always end up wondering how, like, other people end up approaching these. Like, am I weird, or is this just how things are meant to be done? I've been trying to avoid, like, watching anybody else play this game because I don't want spoilers or anything. She go fast, she wipe out, she sprint the rest of the way. Awesome. Alright, but yeah, we're gonna take a 5-minute break here. Please use this time to refill your beverage, go to the bathroom, anything that would take you about 5 minutes. I will see you shortly. I return. Break screens with like no background music or anything of the sort. Kind of makes me wish that I had some sort of like Fox theme song. Maybe I'll go onto that like $30 haircut website and see if I can, with absolutely no musical background whatsoever, put together something that uses a lot of explosion sound effects. Sound of effects? What? Also, during the break, I accidentally did something like insanely cool that nobody else will ever see. Um, I decided to make like a drink, hot chocolate, so like, you know, hot chocolate powder, hot water, kind of goes together. Anyway, but I got like a little like bamboo wooden like stirring rod thing, and it's like cut kind of like a rectangle. And I like put down my mug and I just kind of like tossed the stirring stick into it. And I swear this actually happened. It landed perfectly, like point up in the middle of the cup, like balanced on its tip, unsupported. I was like, nobody's ever gonna believe this. Splendid work on procuring that vehicle for me. I have a team working on it already. Apparently, there's been a technological breakthrough at Quila's security. One of my informants obtained some classified documentation describing a considerable leap forward at their autonomous robot research department. This technology would do wonders for my plan. They store their prototypes in secure vaults on the premises. It'd be fabulous if you could circumvent their security and provide me with a few of these. I'm quite excited to show you what I'm working on. Imagine paying $600 for a can of soda. Yeah, I don't want to go too crazy spending money. Steel robots? Yes. Use the heavy laser cutter to melt the vault doors, bring at least one road droid prototype to the escape boat. Somebody's probably done that for a discontinued flavor. I mean, for $600, you could like hire a YouTuber to reverse engineer the recipe, surely. Use the heavy laser cutter to melt the vault doors, bring at least one to the escape boat. Is this like a tool that's in my... Do I have a heavy laser cutter? Oh, wait, it's over here. Reading the mission objectives helps explain the mission objectives. The safe factory, implying that the other ones are not safe. It's like, hi, I just got hired to work at the safe factory. Where'd you get hired? Oh, the dangerous factory. Okay, but like, why'd you apply there? It's like, well, I needed the money. I wanted to work at the safe factory, but somebody else took the last position. Heavy laser cutter. Laser deflector. I was gonna say, these things remind me of the boxes from Portal 2 that, like, redirect laser beams. Oh, can I not move the laser cutter at all, and I have to just bounce the beam around? Oh, okay. I think that's where this is going. Awesome. You know, this is actually just straight up the exact same mechanic from Portal. Alright, alright. I'm game. I am very game. I could have sworn there was one Portal map where, like, you, like, used a laser to carve out a bit of the test chamber and get out that way. It was, like, one of the sequences where, like, you slip out of the AI's web and you're able to, like, get to a part of the facility that they don't want you in. Alright, the part of me that's incredibly contrarian is just like, what if I just hit this thing with a really big explosion? Inadequate. Can I go around it? Like, okay, I can't go through the door. Can I go, like, around it? I don't think I can. Alright, we are cutting. I wonder if these X's are actually there to help direct the laser, maybe? There's only 4. Explosion knocking the robot over reminds me of the Looney Tunes disintegration proof test. Oh, I presume it's like the person puts it on, gets shot by a disintegrator, and then like crumbles into a pile of dust, and the vest is the only thing left intact. Yeah. I always really enjoyed like Looney Tunes things. Ah yes, the 2 genders, left and right. I have somehow gotten very lost. This happens a lot, mostly to me. Textbook. You're gonna suggest drawing a fox as a 3rd gender? I mean, there. Oh, hello. Contiguous rotation servo motor. Isn't the entire point of a motor, like, continuous rotation? That joke with, the 3 genders boy girl fox thing, that would land a lot better if I was actually non-binary. Alas, I am not. Okay, so the robot's like just straight through here. Can I go through this wall? Yes, I can. Alright. That makes life easier. Can I go through the wall for free if I use a laser? Yeah, little mini tutorial on how these things work. Or can be used, I might prefer to say. I wonder if this thing will instantly kill me, or if it'll just like hurt a lot and then kill me very quickly. Okay, Disney lightsaber rules. Good to know. Just grab this one. This also implies that my face has the same properties as a Disney lightsaber, come to think of it. Which would honestly probably raise more questions than it answered. This is fine, probably. Oh. Oh, the robot's active. And the the laser turned itself off automatically? Okay. Fine. Setting me on fire is very rude, I'll have you know. Imagine granting somebody freedom and then they set you on fire. This robot might be a fox. I can't. Wouldn't it be funny if? Luckily, it can't call the cops on me, so this is fine. It always amuses me when the robots do more damage to the terrain than I do. It's like, would you like a job at Teardown Incorporated? Is it robot dressed as Santa? I think it's just red because it's a fire robot. Ooh, more reflective things. Mirrors, that's what they're called. I think I just got baked. Fox flambe. They both begin with F. I want to get it down there. Ideally without destroying it. I couldn't tell you why, but I was just vividly reminded of Crosscode. I guess maybe it's like the whole like robot breaking out of its like intended pathing thing. Leia, hi. Come along, robot. You're free. Has peace been achieved? Can I interest you in, like, stepping over this curb, like, at all? Ow, 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 ow. Use this. I could probably grab it and drag it over the curb. Is curb the right word if it's not blocking a car? Is this robot close enough to a car to make this count as a curb? I'd say that these are the things that keep me up at night, but the things that keep me up at night are like actual literal cars. Driven by people who have modified their engines to be incredibly loud. I don't think that extinguishing this thing is doing anything, but it does make me feel better. Like I'm doing a shenanigan. Okay, I don't think that this thing's willing to go over the curb, so... let's see if we can't find a slightly more orthodox path. Worst case scenario, I will simply destroy the ground underneath the robot. I should probably put down some paint so I can, like, find my way back to the ship without having to, like, stop and check the map. Oh. Hi, robot friend. Can you hear me? No? Is there an elevator I can use to get up there? Oh. More mirrors. Please stop roasting me. Chat does enough of that. Is there like an elevator down there that I can use? Or do I have to march them down the steps or just shove them off the side? Ideally, I would just get this thing to like follow me in a straight line like that. I don't know how willing to indulge my desire for linearity this thing is. It's like, no, my apprentice. Cut the bars, not me. Oh, interesting, they're like spinning windows. Oh. Foxes might be part cat, but I don't always have the dexterity of one. Exhibit B, if you like. Let's see if we can get back up. Imagine if the cool, like, heist theme, whenever you were in an elevator, just, like, got replaced by generic elevator music. I think that'd be funny. I always enjoy a spot of tonal whiplash. Hi, it's me again. I had a small fall, don't worry about it. Can I interest you in coming through this window with me? I presume not, but I've got to make the offer, otherwise I'll feel bad. I just had an idea. I don't know how viable it is, but I had an idea. The idea was basically, can I attach a rocket thruster to the back of that thing and just, like, push it where I want it? They don't last incredibly long, but, like, maybe long enough? This would definitely be easier if I had a stronger notion of how the robot pathfinding worked. It's like sometimes they take routes that I just really don't expect of them. And other times it's like trying to explain to a cat that the bowl of food in front of it is in fact the food that it has been demanding for the last 15 minutes. Alright, we're getting somewhere. Are you gonna follow me off, or no? It shook its head like, no. Alright, fair enough. Can I grab and physically, like, move you like that? I can grab you, but not do much with it. I might have to just, like, work out an actual, like, proper, like, footpath to the thing. That's probably gonna be easier than, what I was doing. Okay, there is a big elevator here. Sadly, the robots aggro as soon as you crack the safe open, as far as I can tell, so I don't think there is such a thing as true stealth here. I have to, like, get the robot to, like, actually march itself to where I want it. But if I can get it on here, I can just, like, send it down to the bottom, so that's something. I have a truly mighty arm. Alright, so if I can get something here, I can get something down to the boat. Assuming that the elevator doesn't break. I'll label their floors for them, since they didn't seem inclined. Okay, wanna walk that way. Okay. There's another elevator here. I might be able to use this one. So yeah, floor 2 gets me here. So if I can get a robot onto this and then send it to floor 2, I can hypothetically lead it all the way back to the boat. And I'm pretty sure that I got the first robot down here at least once. I should be making better note of where things are. This is straight up just where the first robot is. So, I want to take this one out here, over here, down here, and around like that. It's a start. There's also this elevator. I'm not really sure where this elevator goes. I probably should be, like, making more of a mental note of these elevators. These seem kind of, if not crucial, at least useful. Right, let's, I like how slick these things look. Like they'd be pleasantly smooth to the touch. So if I scooch this back a little bit, I can lower the beam. And I don't have to worry about elevating the things that redirect it. I managed to hit the elevator shaft directly. Alright. When your aim is too good. Put ourselves a nice hole. This feels ripe for shenanigans. I wonder how far I could go if I, like, tightrope walked that laser. Wouldn't be the first time I did something incredibly unintended with a tightrope. You know, this is fine. Okay, it's a little bit wedged, but that's okay. Just get it through there. This is fine. I always thought it'd be super cool to have, like, an incredibly destructive laser like this. It's one of those things where it's like, I don't have a particular use case in mind. It's just, I think it's cool enough that I just want it. I think my headset just cut out. Yes, it did. And vault door open. True. But I've already committed to this course of action, so this is fine. Come along, Mr. Flame Robot thing. I'm assuming Mr. Correct me if I'm wrong. Would you like to get on this elevator? Oh no. Well, that didn't quite go to plan. This is fine. I presume that they're not all fire robots. There's like 4 of them. So I wonder if like the other ones are gonna be like bullets or rockets or tasers, or I wonder what they're gonna be. I don't know. Alright, down with you. Move along, please, if you would. Imagining just like cabling a robot to a crane like that. And congratulations, you just got put in air jail. How do you feel? Does this one forget that I exist if I hold up a box to it? Presumably. Oh, come get me. You wanna get me so bad. Nerd. Alright. Now I just gotta do that 3 more times. I just have an angry, flaming robot in the cargo hold of my boat. What could possibly go wrong? First obstacle, figuring out how to get back up. With my sense of direction, it's more of a challenge than you might suspect. I don't know why, but it does bring me some level of just joy and whimsy to just see something and then smash it. I'm not a particularly destructive person, it's just... There's something with just like how easy it is in this game that just makes it funny. You wonder if any of the stealable valuables will just be Legos? I mean, topical. I hear a fire. Yeah, speaking of just having your things stolen. Random bit of fun trivia. By technicality, Lego is the largest tire manufacturer in the world by a fairly substantial margin. Are these both in one vault? Yes, they are. Yep, like I say, it's a technicality that, like... LEGO does produce more tires than any other company, including the ones that are dedicated to producing tires. By like an order of magnitude, no less. Or at least that was the case back when I first learned that fact. Maybe like the other companies have like stepped it up since then. Presumably not, though. So, vault here. This is actually closer, technically, to the exit than the first one was. Okay, let's see if we can crack this one open. Wonder if I could lift a robot on the forklift? I was kind of speculating earlier, like I wonder if I could use a crane on it. It's like, they're more like, they're basically just like blocks you can move around. Maybe I could like cable one to something? I don't think that they would be entirely docile on a forklift. I'm gonna have to start putting planks down, not to like optimize my escape, but just to help me get around in general. Yeah, fall damage is just a little bit of a nothing burger, which I'm okay with. All this back up. Reload our elevator trap. Though, actually, I think we don't need that one anymore. Okay, finally found my way back to the laser. So I want to get the laser from here. Down to here. Which conceptually doesn't seem all that difficult. I can like move it over here, like point the laser down maybe? And then just redirect it. Yeah. What could possibly go wrong? So that should send it straight down. And I just need another one to put it into the vault door. It goes in the square hole. It's a little bit tight, but that's okay. Not even close. Hey, how's it going? Come along with me, you two, please. Or one at a time, I don't care. Honestly, it makes it easier if you do one at a time. Faster if you do two, easier if you do one. Your power briefly went up. Mine has only continued to grow. Oh, thank you for the rotation. This adds to the aforementioned power. I like how the other robot was just like, nah, I don't feel like it. Ah, this one has missiles. I am suddenly grateful that this one wasn't immediately feeling like it. Luckily I've got moves, so this is fine. Ow. Ow, ow, ow. I was fine up until I got cocky. Oh, I should have saved after getting one. Oh well. This is fine. Learning moment. And it shouldn't take that long to do the first one again. Assuming that I didn't just get, like, absurdly lucky the first time around and only had one chase me. Which could simply be the case. Not quite. Hi, come along, please. One or the other, I don't care which. like that it just keeps blasting my body after I die. Okay, I can stun it briefly, I think, by shooting it. Or at the very least, throw its name off. Ow, ow, ow. Go down, please. Ow. This is fine. Don't get me. Get caught. Alright. Disregard the holes in the architecture and in the box. This is fine. Everything is going according to plan. It is a safe factory. There is no risk of harm or incineration, which are apparently two different things. That said, we're going to take a nice second 5-minute break here. Please use this time to refill your beverage, go to the bathroom. Anything that would take you about 5 minutes. I will see you shortly. I return. It's like, wait a minute. He got there eventually. I'm a little bit cooked. My tail's on fire. But it's okay, because I lived. I'm very powerful. A minor case of third-degree burns won't stop me. Now I just gotta get the last one. Which is down here. And appears to be another type. We cannot just send a laser beam straight down. The nice thing about laser beams is that they do move in very straight lines, so like... I just need to get things more or less close enough. And there are tons of, like, redirectors around the level. So it's not a question of, like, if I can do it, it's just how far out of my pipe will I have to do it. Oh look, there's even one right there. So if I can shine like a laser down here, for example, that might be doable. Yeah, I've got a laser right there. I could easily, like, shift that anywhere over like this to make it a little bit easier to work with. Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't need too many shenanigans, I just need, like, a relatively solid series of bounces. So, like... that might be valuable. Anyway, oh, not here. So it is just gonna punch straight through the ground. Yeah, maybe I'll put, like, the redirector thing here, bounce it off this way. That gets it over here. And I can shoot it over this way. Send it down here. And then I can probably just, like, hold one up here to get that door open. Okay, that's not too bad. Not at all. Turns out, what is essentially no clip is really good for casing. What do I want this to be about here-ish? That's probably fine. I gotta get back up to where the laser is. You would think that I would have memorized this by now. Regrettably, my memory's not that great. This is fine. Come to think of it, I don't actually have a plan to get the last robot up from down there. But I'll worry about that once I actually get the door open. Or perhaps once I'm able to open the door. Okay, so I'll take this, and instead of putting it straight down, I'll point it to the side like this. Then I'll grab another one and I'll point that one down. I just need to line this one up with one on the floor below, which I believe I put about here. If I actually got this right, then I've somehow grown a sense of, like, object persistence. That is hitting the ground here, not quite. If I go straight up from here... right about here, in line with this thing. Yeah, by my standards, that's pretty good. It's weird, you do things that you're not good at enough times and you start to get good at them. It's weird. They don't teach you that in school. So yeah, I want to move it to about here. Right about there. Right, pretty good. Just gotta go down there and adjust that thing. Luckily, I've lost weight, so I was able to slip through a 3-pixel wide gap. I like the far view of that. Now I just gotta get this beam pointed downwards, which shouldn't be too difficult. There are laser redirectors kind of all over the place. Just gotta find one that's not currently in use. Like this one. I wonder if these things have been here from the start or if they only spawned in for this mission. Like, imagine if they were there to begin with and they just, like, didn't... I just didn't, like, parse them as being important because they weren't, like, relevant until now. That'd be kinda cool. That sounded expensive. There. Okay, not as useful as I'd hoped because there's rock there. Alright. That's fine though. The destruction that I'm just, like, incidentally causing in the background is also amusing me. Right, I can probably prop a laser redirector thing on that. Get, like, an angle to it. This is how I find things, like, in my home. I'm just like, it's around here somewhere. I'll just kind of, like, run around until I encounter it. And then I'll have it. I know that there were, like, a bunch up in, like, the parking lot. Here we are. I feel like I've been using the reflectors less than the deflectors. And I kind of feel bad for them. It's like, I'm sure you're just as valid, but, like, the deflectors seem substantially easier to use. Honestly, this works. Right, and then there's plenty of stuff in here. And the door is open. What's your shtick? Bullets, alright. I kinda suspected as much. This is working way better than it has any right to. Just hide between his legs, he'll never see you. Ow, ow, ow. It actually works really well, what the heck? I do enjoy getting up to like Looney Tunes tier shenanigans with the robots. Awesome. Mastermind. Truly, that is the word that most describes me. Aside from Fox, of course. Book Hill State Penitentiary. Inmate Lawrence Lee Jr. Subject poem. Deeply embedded, my opening letters incorporate something hidden. While on our nocturnal daunting earth, retribution lively awaits naive disputant, breakdown is godsend. Random esoteric writings await reticular decipher. This message has been scanned by LSP Communications Department. DEMOL, demolish. Demolish Waterland. Demolish Waterland, big reward. Or Wonderland. Malice in Wonderland. Help locked up please sabotage Gordon's Wonderland. Demolish the rise so they're below the marked threshold. Breaking a neon sign will trigger the alarm. Interesting. I feel like this is something that nitroglycerin might end up being really good for. Imagine perching a car on top of a tarp. Alright, if I just do a little bit of this, what happens? As long as the neon doesn't break, I guess it doesn't count. Alright. Alright, I can work with this. Well, like, I knew that it was gonna end up breaking, but it's like, just detaching it didn't count as breaking. So, like, hypothetically, I could, like, cut the neon bits off and, like, gingerly set them aside and then just, like, go to town on what's left. Never mind. Well, not never mind, but, like, I wonder if, like, the whole moving bit is what counts for that? Like, if I can detach this and then catch it... Okay, this one might be magic. Gingerly. Alright. I just gently set these aside, without breaking them. I've always really enjoyed the look of neon lights. Just like light in general, like used decoratively, I've always enjoyed. Yeah, I don't want to go too crazy with the blowtorch, so let's try and find a more, a less precise way of getting that thing down. Something like a vehicle. You know, for being owned by Gordon, this place is surprisingly sparse on vehicles. Alright. One down. Get up on top of that. This background music sounds like... This sounds like this would be part of the soundtrack in Pokemon XD. A little magic is a treat. Like, this very much sounds like a Cypher Peon theme to me. And this is why we quick save. Awesome. Come along. If you would. These individual little lights going up the length of the things count as neon? No, they don't. Alright. Yeah, whether or not they're meant to be neon, breaking them didn't set anything off, so... For this one, I just need to take the roof off. The neon bits aren't actually even above the line. I've got like one construction vehicle. No, there's another one. But that vehicle there is a more generic one. If I can, like, prop that thing up and then, like, gently lower it down. Alright, this one seems almost purpose-built for the crane. Maybe not, actually. That could have been done better. Is this fine? Just gingerly put this over here. Can I detach this thing at all without breaking it? Doesn't look like it. Or at least if I do want to do it, it's gotta be like that, I guess. I wonder if that's a real car. I wouldn't put it past Corden to have that be a real car. I like how it's still spinning. It's like a wounded animal trying to limp away after being injured but not killed. Just put that there. Revolving Revels. Ooh, motorcycles. Motorcycles are cool, they just make a lot of noise, I found. Mission seems like a wonderland for well-placed rockets. That could also be the case, yeah. A thought occurs to me. Try to do as much as I can without setting off the alarm, though, and then I can go really crazy at the other end of it. Because I can set off the alarm just as long as I can do all the demolition before a minute passes after the first alarm goes off. The one time that I can remember riding a Ferris wheel in my life, it was one of the most terrifying experiences I've ever had. Because once I got up on there, I was just like, wow, this thing is really rickety. And then they rotated it until I was about up here, and then they just like, there was like an error with the Ferris wheel, so it like stuck me up there for like 20 minutes straight. With like the wind like making the whole thing like creaky and rickety. Not a good time. Yeah, I don't think that I'm getting this one down without setting off the alarm that easily. This one, however. This one feels incredibly doable. I keep thinking that this plank looks like Minecraft Steve's arm. I like that it was the snow holding it together there. Now go at this however I please. And I do enjoy a good bomb. We shall simply get rid of all the fire alarms, or all the fire, to suppress the alarm. Oh, Poland 48592. Thank you so much for the follow. I appreciate it. Thank you for the hydration. Water the VTuber like a Tamagotchi. I feel like I've managed to put down bombs to tactically maximize the amount of resources I had to spend on this. Can I search planes on the Steam Workshop? I probably could. I'm doing the campaign, though. Oh, thank you for the rotation. There we go. That was perhaps a smidge more expensive than it could have been, but that's okay. Spinning planes tend to not be good. I mean, that's just helicopters. Helicopters are awesome. It did not work the way I hoped it would. You think the rope was on fire? Nope, that's just a lamp. Let's see if I can get this down without destroying the neon. Maybe if I destroy the tack... Tack? What? Track, it'll just slip off. There we go. Not too bad. Definitely feels like a job for vehicles. Or nitroglycerin. But like, I've got vehicles at hand, so... There is that big, dump truck around the side here, I think. It's probably better for this. A little heavier duty. Gotta be careful not to destroy any neon just in transit. Come on, get out of there. I will use thrusters if I need thrusters. For now, I'm just kind of taking it as it comes. Oh. Well, I did not get quite as much use out of that as I'd hoped to. I do appreciate that that's a real car. That is very Gordon. Right, what if I did some nitroglycerin? So speaking of Looney Tunes... Anyway, 0.7 meters too tall, but I've got rockets, so this is fine. I kind of want to let the fire go just a little bit. Like, cause damage, but hopefully not actually summon anybody. Okay, hopefully most of the roof can just be demolished with the sledge. Because I would like to not spend too many more resources just getting this thing down. Granted, there aren't that many things left to take down, and most of them just seem to be able to knock them over the variety. So if I was going to spend stuff, this would be the place to do it. But in the same breath, if I don't have to spend stuff, then I don't want it. Just get down there. Not quite what I meant to do, but we take those. I like that the light's still on. Impressive, impressive craftsmanship on that light bulb. Built to last, surely. There we go. Okay, now I just need this sign, that carousel, and that merry-go-round to all come down. I do still have the crane. I could also just, if I can cause enough damage, I could just blow them all up and get out of here. Wonder how viable that is over here. Like, what are the odds that I can just, like, knock this over and it'll fall over and count? Give it a little push. Probably needed the push to be higher if I wanted that to work. Yeah, what if I make the cuts on the one side a little bit higher? So, like this. Until. That went way better than I thought it would, not gonna lie. I did not think that that was gonna fall over and not break anything. That was just gonna be my proof of concept for, like, I can pull a string and, like, start the timer. Alright, in light of that, I just have to knock over this sign and this merry-go-round. Oh, thank you for the headpats, I appreciate them very, very much. As for this... Not like that. I could just... get this to kind of come down just a little bit. That'd be lovely. Okay. Slowly, gently. Oh, each of the poles on that one's gonna hold it up? Okay. I know that I can set off the alarm. But part of me thinks that it'd be really funny if I could just, like, destroy the entire thing without even setting off the alarm. You so incredible seeing an amusement park get ruined like this. Just imagine that instead of it being all like Gordon Wu brand, it was like Jeff Bezos brand or Elon Musk brand. Like his face on absolutely everything. I am baffled that that didn't break any of the neon. Well, certainly makes my job easier. Right now it's just the neon sign out front. Never mind. And away we go. I'm not even sure what to set off the alarm. I am a mastermind. Yeah, we're gonna call it there for the night. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it each and every time. Next scheduled stream is going to be tomorrow. The game is going to be on Epic. The next time that I'm playing Teardown in particular is going to be on Sunday. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful night. I hope to see you again. Good night.